Hey guys, Red is Great here. Welcome to my final Senate prediction of the cycle. Uh, Nothing really much to say here. If you're watching this in the future and I'm wrong, feel free to laugh at me. So, let's get started. So, there's firstly is a few states that I kind of want to discuss. We'll start with Maryland. Maryland, you have Larry Hogan, who's running. He's run an okay campaign, popular former governor, but this is Maryland. The state was never really in contention. Early on, there was good polling for him, but once the attack ads begun, when you're in safe states, you can simply put, hey, look, my Republican opponent is going to vote for Mitch McConnell as majority leader. And voters realize, oh, yeah, we hate this guy. So I do think he outperforms by a good amount, but the state was always safely Democrat. I don't know why some people moved it. Some people had it lean or likely, but the state was never in contention, so uh, it's kind of one of the safe states I want to kind of discuss. So, next, a race I'm very interested in is Nebraska Senate. You may be saying, Red, are you stupid? Nebraska is a safe Republican state. Why would the state be competitive? You have an interesting race. You have Dan Osborne, an independent. The Democrats rallied behind him, didn't run a candidate, versus Deb Fischer. You may be asking, who the hell is Deb Fischer? I've never heard of this woman in my life. And that's kind of what's hurting her, too. She's incumbent senator since 2012. She's just irrelevant. That's the best way to put it. Unlike someone like Ted Cruz or Mike Lee or Bob Casey or someone like Mark Kelly that are always in the news, always talking about something. When was the last time you have heard about Deb Fischer? Even the serious political, buffs don't know who the hell this woman is. She's irrelevant, and that's hurting her. Dan Osborne is saying, "Hey, look, she's been in the Senate forever, and what's she done for you, man? She's gotten richer. She's, just in the Senate. She's done nothing for Nebraskans, and that's actually hurting her. Polling for this race has this race competitive, but all the polling is either Dan Osborne internals, which internal polls don't ever really take seriously. They're usually wrong. They're usually for fundraising reasons. Even Fisher's own internals have her only winning by single digits. She has won an abysmal campaign. Osborne has been hitting her hard, saying, hey, look, she's refusing to debate me. Why is she refusing to debate me? She doesn't want to, she's hiding from her record, and that's hurting her. And she just hasn't campaigned. She hasn't done any events, refused to debate. She fell asleep at the wheel, quite frankly, and that's hurting her. But this is Nebraska. I will be extremely shocked if Dan Osborne wins, even though he's a great candidate. And even this race, you may be saying, oh, polling could be wrong. National Republicans and Democrats are flooding this race. When that happens, that usually means, hey, look, this race is closer than expected. We have to put money in. And today, this is likely R. I think Fischer wins by like 10. But this race will be interesting to watch. It would be really funny that Republicans they win Montana and stuff, but Dan Osborne wins and there's a 50-50 Senate. So I would be very shocked if this race is close in the end. I would be. So let's knock it out, the Rust Belt. All these races are interesting. And simply put, I think all of them are lean Democratic. Why? The Republican candidates in these races are... So the thing is with the cycle for the Senate races, there's no outlandishly awful candidates with the exception of one lady from Arizona, which we'll discuss momentarily. There's no, obviously people like... There's no Doug Mastrianos, no Tudor Dixons, no J.R. Majewskis that are outlandishly terrible. They're just mediocre, and these people are running against incumbents, with the exception of Michigan. Michigan's interesting because you have Mike Rogers, former representative, versus Alicia Slotkin, an incumbent representative. And he's polling horribly, and I don't understand why. I don't know if he's running a bad candidate, a bad race, or he's a bad candidate. I don't really know. I'm not kept up with it. I think, Michigan's a blue state fundamentally. I think Slotkin wins by probably the same amount as Harris, but you'll see some down ballot lag. I think Rogers is going to do... He outrun Trump in like suburban Detroit, suburban Grand Rapids, but working class areas that will probably vote for Trump may split their ballot for Slotkin. Now, Wisconsin, this has been a very hyped up race by online conservatives. They were like, hey, we have this guy. I think his name is Hovde. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's very weird spelling last name. But, I mean, he's an okay candidate. People were hyping him up as the next Glenn Youngkin, which is stupid. But I think this will be Baldwin's closest race. I think it'll be around 2 or 3 points for her. She outruns Harris in, rural working class areas. So she wins. In Pennsylvania, this race, I've been pleasantly shocked. Early on, this was looking like a non-competitive race. There was, Doug Mastriano was considering running, and he didn't run, thankfully. This race would have been probably safe Democratic if he did run. So, yeah, David McCormick, who lost to Oz by like 400 votes in 2022. He has run a fantastic campaign, and I'm pleasantly shocked. Early on, I dismissed him because he kind of had fundamentally the same issues as Oz. He has the carpetbag issues. He's wealthy. I figured it would be repeat of 2022, But, I mean, Casey has run a pretty bad candidate. He's a bad campaign, too. But I think fundamentally, Casey's a strong incumbent. Pennsylvania's a blue state. Down ballot mostly, fundamentally, is a blue state. We saw that in 2022, 2020 to a lesser extent. I think this is going to be repeated 2022 PA Senate race. You'll see the rurals underperform for Dave McCormick, and Casey outruns in Western Pennsylvania. He outruns Harris there. I would be surprised if this race does flip. Virginia is safe. There was a lot of hype early on about Hung Cao, the Republican. He's excuse me, sorry. I just ate lunch and I'm burping. He's a pretty weak candidate. He ran for House against Wexton and got only close due to turnout. Turnout was awful in that district, and I mean, the incumbent Democrat didn't even try, quite frankly. He's run a abysmal campaign, quite frankly. Very, very MAGA campaign. And this is Virginia, a state that, rejected Donald Trump twice by large amounts. I mean, Tim Kaine is a non-controversial, long-time incumbent. This race is safe Democrat, quite frankly. Ohio is the race that will decide, well, actually, technically Montana, but even though Marino has ran an awful, he's run an abysmal campaign, and Brown's an incumbent, I think for a variety of reasons, I think just trends, Trump coattails will help him. And just Republicans have absolutely hammered Brown with so much amount of money, and that has hurt him. So I think this race flips. Sherrod Brown could win, but I think this will be the closest race of the Senate. I think either side will win by maybe under a point, around a point, a little bit above a point. So this is the race. We'll decide Senate control. Republicans have flipped the Senate. Good job. Yay. Jon Tester early on. This is one race I've always had Republicans flipping. Even if Rosendale ran, which he initially did, but then immediately dropped out. I think even if he ran, this race would have flipped. This is Montana. It's an R+16 state. Tester is a long-term incumbent, but Republicans have spent an absolutely insane amount of money, and his approvals went from having 65+% approval rating, extremely popular, to being having pretty sucky approval ratings. I think the last poll had his approval rating at like 45%, and I think it was nearly tied or something too, which is bad for an incumbent senator. I mean, you could argue that, what about Ron Johnson? His approval ratings were like -20 and he won. That was a 50-50 state, Wisconsin. This state, Montana, in order for Tester to win, he either needs to win over an insane amount of Republicans or get insanely high Democratic and independent turnout. Now, I do think this race will be closer than expected. I think Sheehy, I apologize, I don't know how to say his last name. I think he will win by 5 or 6 points. I mean, he's a fine candidate, nothing insane. He has a few scandals, but they're not really scandals. They're kind of stupid stuff that they're nothing burgers, basically. So, there you go. Republicans have flipped the Senate. Good job, guys. Now, Nevada and Arizona, we're talking about the part. I think they're both Nevada, I don't understand because Sam Brown, the Republican, I mean, he's not really a bad candidate. He's has a few scandals, really. Uh, he's polling horribly, and I just, same thing with Michigan. I don't understand why. I don't know. I mean, he's not run a bad candidate from what I've seen. He's not really a far-right, outspoken extremist like someone like Lake or Mastriano. And I mean, Rosen isn't some electoral juggernaut like Casey or Klobuchar. She's kind of a backbench Democratic incumbent. She won by 5 in 2018 against a very unpopular incumbent Republican senator. And Poland has her doing better than that, which I just find ridiculous, quite frankly. I think she wins by 3 or 4. She outruns Harris, but end of the day, she's not winning by an insane amount. It's still going to be close. Arizona, this has probably been the biggest throwaway race of the cycle. Republicans decided to rally around Kari Lake for some reason. Don't ask me why. And I mean, this race has just been abysmal for her. Her approvals are awful. I mean, national Republicans kind of gave up on this race. And I do think the Democratic candidate, Ruben Gallego, I think he's a fundamentally bad candidate. At first, I believe that. Very, very progressive. And, I mean, Arizona's not a progressive state. There's a lot of McCain, Romney Republicans, a lot of moderates who voted Republican in the past but said, hey, I'm voting for Biden. Probably voting for Harris this year, but they don't like Harris. They don't really like Biden. They just hate Trump. But they would be open to voting for someone like Doug Ducey or Kimberly Lee or someone like David Schweikert. But this has just been an embarrassing race for Lake. And I mean, polling for this race has been abysmal. She's led like 2 polls, and they're both really crappy polls. I think this race is closer than expected. I think I can't talk. Gallego wins by like 3 or 4 at the end of the day. Not as much as Poland is suggestion, but still a comfortable victory. Texas and Florida. Florida is likely. Rick Scott, even though his approvals are kind of meh. Florida is a fundamentally red state. Democrats have kind of abandoned this race. I think he wins. I think he underperforms Trump just because of, down ballot lag and his poor approvals. While Trump wins Florida by like 8 or 9, Rick Scott's going to win by 6 or 5. Not really a bad result regardless, but still. Texas, Democrats are hoping they can flip this race. They flip this race. They actually would still lose the Senate fundamentally, but if they keep Ohio, they keep the Senate. But I think Cruz wins by 2 or 3 or 4 maybe. So my guess is 2 or 3. He's in a better position than 2018. His approval ratings are better. I don't think Allred is an electoral juggernaut, kind of like how Beto was. I mean, Democrats haven't really invested in this race either. They put like a couple thousand, I think $1 million or so in, which in Texas, a big state like this, $1 million is absolutely nothing. So I do think Allred probably I don't think he outperforms Harris. I think he gets the same amount of vote percentage. I think Cruz just underperforms Trump. I mean, Cruz has he's never really been popular in Texas, so there we go. I think Republicans flip the Senate, and that's 52 seats. So if I'm wrong, feel free to laugh at me, but thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.